what's going on, everybody? Welcome to I Took a Film Class Once Movie Reviews. As the title suggests, I took a film class one time. Technically, twice. I took two film classes. It wasn't the same one. I didn't fail the first one. I just took two separately in college. So obviously, I should know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I took a film class? Okay. Anyway, this is a movie review and TV show review channel. That's never been done before. Nobody's ever done that. So this is me doing it. I give a shit about movies. I like movies. I like watching them. I don't have any experience making film. I have lots of experience watching film. Lots of experience watching people do things in front of camera, mostly sexual. But in the non-sexual world, lots of movies, lots of TV shows, lots of anime as well. A big background in a lot of things. I like a lot of foreign films. There's a lot of different things that I like to get into. A lot of different genres and stuff like that. I don't really think that there's a specific genre that I don't like, that I don't care about, or that I wouldn't give a shot to, right? And I assume if anybody ever finds this channel and it's not lost in some obscure bottom-dwelling YouTube dungeon somewhere, then you guys probably care about film as well. So this is a sort of attempt at just talking about movies, and there's some movies in the background. This is a poorly lit basement, so I'm sure if you're watching and you'll think, wow, I've always wanted to watch another YouTube channel about movie reviews, except in much poorer quality, in which case you've come to the right place. So I apologize for all of that. I do have a mic though, and I hope that you guys can hear my nasally voice. I hope that's picking up quite well. If not, you guys got to let me know. Otherwise, at some point I'll get better equipment. I have other YouTube channels that are more successful than this one. This one's just new, and I'm just sort of starting it because I like talking about movies and wasting your time for, let's see, 2 minutes and 17 seconds so far. Okay, so that's just the intro to my channel. I'm not going to just end the video here, though. I would like to at least start this channel by talking about a program that I recently have watched. Now, should just sort of preface this by saying that I'm going to use mild spoilers for all of my videos. Okay, I don't really want to waste or give away too much information about things that you may watch or haven't seen yet, right? I think that in some cases there's going to be, if I ever, did a review for Titanic, that I think that that sort of takes care of itself, right? I think you already know what happened, right? The boat fucking sank, okay? And things like Sixth Sense, okay? There's some twists and plot elements of movies that are so old that the spoiler element of it might not necessarily even come into effect anymore. But I am going to focus on things that are available on American Netflix. Okay, they might be available on other Netflixes. Netflix Japan, Netflix Canada, Netflix England, Netflix Luxembourg. Okay, I don't know if Luxembourg even has their own Netflix. Presumably so, given how rich they are. But this is anything that you can see on American Netflix. So we're just going to keep it into that wheelhouse, all right? Things that I've seen, that you could just click on right after watching this video and just go watch them immediately, okay? So let's get into it. I want to start this film channel with a TV show, because why the fuck not, right? So I want to start with the amazing Japanese TV series called Midnight Diner, all right? That's me drinking. So Midnight Diner, really awesome show, really unique. Really like out of this world unique. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like Midnight Diner. Okay, so there is some confusion with this series, right? It's 3 original series of just called Midnight Diner on Netflix, and then there was Midnight Diner Tokyo Stories, which is actually technically seasons 4 and 5 of Midnight Diner, and then there's 2 movies. Now the 2 movies are not on American Netflix. They're probably on Netflix Japan, I would hope. And the confusion lies around the fact that Tokyo Stories was released first onto Netflix. So people thought that seasons 4 and 5 were actually 1 and 2, and they kind of missed out on a lot of information. But it's not that big of a deal, and now you can kind of just jump into it and start with Midnight Diner just a regular season, which is seasons 1 through 3, and technically they kind of just go by episodes. So season 2 starts as episode 11, for instance, so there's 30 episodes, and then Tokyo Stories is another 20. Okay, so there should be about 50 episodes total, plus two movies, which I haven't seen. So let's get into the actual breakdown of what the show is. So the show is sort of anthology. All right. There's a central character to the story, and it's this guy who's really only referred to as the master. So it's just this chef and a sort of kind of the Japanese name eludes me now, which is kind of messed up since I majored in Japanese in college. But it's essentially just this kind of like little snack diner, okay, similar to like a bar or something like that, like not really a dive bar, but it's just this late night kind of thing. And as the name suggests, midnight diner, it's this diner that's only open from midnight to about 7 in the morning, right? And this character, he's he's very chill would be a good word, but he's very stoic. He doesn't have a lot of influence over necessarily the events of the story. He's more of a narrator, more of a watcher, an observer, someone in which events kind of, the things around him, the cast of characters that come into his diner, which usually involve a different set of circumstances or characters every episode. They come into his diner and sort of set things in motion, and he's just there to sort of cook them food and listen and sometimes offer advice. So it's this really beautiful show that kind of has this whimsical element to it. It's beautiful in this sense. It's like there's this deep level of empathy that is shown throughout each episode of this show, and it's very similar in this vein to anime. And one of the reasons that I think a lot of people like anime, or that they've watched it, is that it brings a sort of empathy or a compassion, or these personas that we all kind of like, that we gravitate to what we want to have, and then it brings it into a real world, right? Where we wouldn't really find that. So anime is like it allows us to be really empathetic, because it talks about feelings and emotions in such a way that we don't really talk about in real life, okay? And maybe that's such a beautiful thing for the Japanese culture, and specifically because of how repressed a lot of their culture seems to have been throughout history, really. And that's not a judgment at all. It's just, if you study history, there's a lot of repression in Japanese culture. So with Midnight Diner, it has this same element. It has this empathy that's being brought through characters. And again, there's some recurring characters that are like regulars in this diner, and they have backstories too, and personalities, and of course, and there's lots of inside jokes and things that are carried over into sort of seasons and episodes. They're not necessarily like so important that you can't start with episode 4, and it doesn't really matter necessarily what episode you watch them in or what order you start. But assuming that you're starting from the first episode of the first season of Midnight Diner, you kind of build this. You're building something with these characters, and what you're building isn't necessarily this world. It's not a world building thing. It's not a fantasy, right? It's not Lord of the Rings or anything like that. It's just this sort of regular kind of thing. It's a slice of life, right? I think that would be the genre that you would call it. And over this course of 50 odd episodes, right, you really dive deep into stories that are beautifully woven together. And they're very simple. There's nothing really like insane going on. The writing itself isn't like superbly groundbreaking, but it's done in such a way that it never really overextends itself, especially given the sort of low budget that it has. And it especially starts with a low budget, which you'll immediately notice. It doesn't really, that doesn't seem to affect it. The writing just works with what they have. They don't try to overextend anything, do anything crazy. There's very little like special effects and things like that, and some camera tricks and editing, of course, to make that easy. But in any case, it's this sort of like just this very like gentle ride. It's not like a roller coaster or anything like that. Maybe it could be best compared to It's a Small World from Disneyland, which I know is like a terrible ride that nobody seems to like, but it's this like little mini, like it's this calm adventure. It's not, it's this very peaceful transition from episode to episode, and every episode is different. There's some stories that are comedy, that are funny, some that you don't see coming, ones that are very sad, that make you basically depressed. There's a lot of melancholy in the episodes, a lot of nostalgia, a lot of beauty, a lot of love. It really focuses in on a lot of elements of love, of course, relationships specifically. but deep friendships, and it really makes you think about people in the world. It's like because if you love to travel, for instance, you know that you meet a lot of people, and as you meet a lot of people, you begin to sort of understand people's backstories and where they're coming from, and you start to empathize more and more with them, and you stop maybe becoming so judgmental of anything, who you were. You start to humble yourself a little bit, and this show is an absolutely humbling experience. It humbles the shit out of you because the stories are so personal and realistic that even though they're happening in sort of Tokyo and Shinjuku and this little back alley diner, they feel like this is real, like this could happen at any point, and that this is absolutely going on. And because of the aesthetic and the feel and the low budget, of course, it really does feel like this kind of everyday situation. Like I said, this slice of life. So it's this vastly important piece of a film, this TV show that I think is like really. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but it's insane how beautiful this show is. I discovered it completely by accident, and it has this cooking element to it, which is really cool. I think from the moment I watched it, I was so entangled in it that I actually learned how to cook. I mean, I already kind of knew how to cook, but they have these recipes at the end of every episode where the characters of that episode are directly talking to the camera. So it's sort of separate from the show itself. But the only way to describe it is they're kind of breaking the fourth wall to give the audience, now not focusing on the plot of the show, just an ingredient, whatever the focus of that dish was, right? So every episode has a focus of a dish. So one episode might be about udon, okay, and another might be about tempura or something of that nature. And those dishes, those singular dishes, have there's something about those dishes that reflect on the story of that episode, right? So, and this is just off the top of my head. I don't want to give anything too much away, but like say if there's something about ramen, then it's about two friends who reunite after a long time, who have this love of ramen. And they used to always eat ramen at this place, and they come to this diner, right? And it's this kind of cool experience, right? And the master has like these kind of rules of the diner, which is basically like, I'll make anything that you want as long as I have the ingredients, right? So every episode features these different sort of these dishes, and so at most episodes, there is this cooking element at the end. In the later seasons, they kind of stopped doing it for some reason. I'm not exactly sure, but especially in the first two seasons of the original Midnight Diner, you get like a little 2-minute sort of how to make this dish at the end of every episode, which is given to you, explained to you by the characters of that episode. And it's just cool. I've probably learned how to make 4 or 5 dishes from just watching this show, and it's super, super cool. And you if you like cooking, you can probably get a lot out of it yourself. So that part is great. As for the cinematography element of things, great sound, music. It's very simple. Again, the opening has a really beautiful nostalgia about it. It kind of uses this backdrop of Tokyo, and the song, the opening title, the opening credits is a very just kind of like slow, peaceful song. It's very much like a stream in a forest. I know that's a pretty cliche, example there, but it really just kind of carries you along. It's very beautiful. The music that they use, they don't use anything wild, maybe because of budget or maybe because it doesn't fit the aesthetic, but there's lots of beauty in just sort of classical pieces they pick up. Slow songs, most of it being Japanese, but the music fits really well with the mood. There's lots of emotional scenes. The only thing that I would say about this show that is maybe a little bit too much is the amount of times they reuse particular elements. So there's a lot of scenes of people crying at the dinner table or at the bar, sort of thing. A lot of people crying at the bar. And you kind of like once or twice, and maybe even 3 times, you're like, okay, I can see that happening. But how many people are gonna be crying at a bar? There's a lot of that. Maybe like, I think 10, to be honest, and that's kind of too much. But other than that, it's this beautiful story that is woven over 50 episodes that really transports you into that sort of culture. And other than that, I think the only thing you can really comment on is there's some gap in time, in real life time, between seasons 4 and 5 that are sort of noticeable. And so some of the characters stop becoming so prevalent because maybe they've picked up other work, or don't want to do it anymore, or they've aged a little bit. So, but it doesn't just detract from the story. And I honestly think that every season holds its own, and there's so many beautiful episodes that just feel really important to you, that there's going to be some that it feels like as if this fucking show is talking to you directly to help you out. It's really personal. And that beautiful nuance of the show is just, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a show that can come close to this. It's like a cooking show, a slice of life, this Japanese show. It's this it's a foreign show, you know. It's whimsical, it's nostalgic, it's sad, it's funny, it's happy. It really is just this lesson in emotion, a lesson in empathy, a lesson in compassion. So I feel like this is one of the rare shows that could change an individual, that could influence you. It influenced me in a very emotional way. It helped me become more empathetic, but it also influenced me in just a practical way. I've learned how to cook, right? And I really feel like it's one of those shows that could do the same for you guys if you choose to watch it, okay? So that's just this episode, if you want to call these episodes. But that's just this video for the day, Midnight Diner. Again, available on American Netflix, and usually I'll try to keep these videos a little shorter in the future. I know our attention span outside of cat videos and pornography is very, very limited, but I'm going to try and keep these usually around 10-12 minutes. But I hope that you guys give this show a try, a chance. It's really, really good. And if you guys watching this, let me know if you've seen it, what you guys think of it. I'd love to talk about it. Really great show. Okay, guys, we'll talk soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.